is awesome. Well, just real quick, I hope you guys enjoyed that TED Talk by Simon Sinek. He is awesome. If you've never read any of his books, he's got a great one I just started called Leaders Eat Last. Just a phenomenal guy that'll just wrap your thinking in a different manner. So if you have some time, check out some of his books, great for entrepreneurship or anything. And please also make plans to attend that September 17th TEDx event. You mentioned it's not only tech, it really isn't. I've actually watched a TED Talk on someone tying their shoes differently once, and it was really good, and I actually used it. So I think you should watch that. If you YouTube it, you'll find it. So, hey everyone, I'm Matt McLellan, founder of Absolute Nutrition and Apparel Lab, and I've been consistently failing for about 30 years now. Failing to plan, failing to learn, failing to listen, failing to execute, but most importantly, failing forward. See, I've never really been much of one to plan. No, I'm pretty serious about that. You can ask my mom, you can ask my former teachers, and several of my ex-girlfriends. It drives them nuts. But here's the thing about a lack of a plan. You can just make it up as you go along. No boundaries, no limitations, no set direction. It's hard to do something the wrong way if you don't really have a plan, right? See, that's kind of been my mentality my whole life. Does anyone here remember a program called Odyssey of the Mind by chance? Yeah. I think it was 4th grade when I first tried out for the team. You had to develop a product and then speak to the leaders about the product in kind of a performance manner. And in normal math fashion, I showed up unprepared and, let's be honest, probably late. But when it was my turn to go up, I just came up with the idea the past 5 minutes when I should have been paying attention and went with it. Now, it wasn't until years later that Mr. Mack told me why he actually let me be on the team. And it wasn't because of my presentation, and it wasn't because of my product idea. It was because he knew I was good at thinking on my feet. I don't know how he knew that I didn't have a plan, but he figured it out. Well, I don't really remember if I felt like I did well, if I failed miserably, or really what I even talked about that day. But that was when I realized that, planning is something that can go both ways. So let me tell you a little story about another imperfect plan. Spoiler alert, this one's called Absolute Nutrition. Most of you would assume that after months of research, careful planning, and due proper diligence, that I wrote the business plan for my first business, Absolute Nutrition. Please continue to think of me in that regard. I really appreciate it. But the truth is that I thought about opening a small supplement shop in a local gym. And once I was turned down for the idea, I went about it a little more tenaciously. The minute I left the gym that day, I went right to the complex, literally right next door, and called the landlord. About 15 minutes later, I toured the building and kind of threw an offer on a whim. And fast forward 3 months later, and I opened a business. Now, I definitely tend to thrive in a sink or swim environment, but please understand that I've done my share of drowning as well. As much as I love spontaneity and I truly despise planning, I've come to understand the value of planning when necessary. And when I say despise, I mean Tony asked me to come speak to you guys tonight, and I had a really hard time saying yes. She kind of verbally fought me for a little bit, and then finally I conceded and agreed. And it wasn't because I didn't want to be here tonight or attend the event at all. It was just because I was scared. And that's the thing about planning, really, that I think a lot of it does come into a fear scenario. A plan is a set of instructions so that you don't make a mistake, right? You covered all the bases, made sure you haven't left anything out, and thought through most, if not all, the potential difficulties. But a plan is also an agreement, sort of a commitment to action. If you start planning, you're already halfway into completing a task, and you really can't back out now. Kind of intimidating. Much like being on stage right now, by the way. It can cause a lot of worry and stress, and a lot of people fall into a state of what we call analysis paralysis. They kind of get overworked about the details during the planning stages and never really move any further, or some don't even start the plan in the first place. It was always easier for me just to not plan and not have to worry about it altogether. With a lack of a plan, you can choose your own direction, but you may also miss opportunity. You wouldn't know the #1 restaurant to go to in Chicago for pizza if you hadn't planned before your trip. The other life skill I have going for me is that I'm very stubborn. Being stubborn made me not want to plan even more so. Anytime mom and dad would say I should plan for X, I would just look at them and kind of think to myself, well, I'll show you guys. It's really hard to learn when you're that stubborn, and learning is so much of the journey and the battle. Strangely enough, I actually love to learn. I've probably taken apart most household appliances at least once just to kind of see how they work. What I haven't always done well is learning or listening to someone else on how they did it or what they might recommend. I like to try and learn things on my own. And let me define that one for you guys. That's called the hard way. I wanted to learn things on my own rather than listen to anyone else's advice. It's definitely one of my top regrets and something I've learned to overcome in life, and a big reason why I agreed to be here tonight as well. I have a saying I've adopted over the years that I'm forever both the student and the teacher. And I think we can all stand to learn something new every day for the rest of our lives. It is true what they say, that knowledge is power. Now that power isn't just for self-use or credibility, in my opinion. It's the ability to give and teach that knowledge again to others. And it's both a responsibility and an obligation to spread it and help them learn as well. When it comes to planning, I've learned there's a balance. When an idea is fire red hot and you're ready to jump, you just do it. You go. You can plan the hell out of a good idea, but you might lose the passion behind it in the first place. A couple of years ago, I had a friend tell me, Matt, I love that you just do things. And I said, well, I'm not really sure what you mean. And she said, well, you don't just talk about it, you actually go out and do it. And I kind of thought this was silly because I'm like, doesn't everybody do that? But, a lot of times a plan can complicate the idea, and going back to the former, almost kind of paralyze you in thought instead of creating movement. Fast execution and getting things done is the name of the game. You have to keep that energy alive and idea glowing until it's in motion. With more complex ideas, say like opening a business, for example, maybe a little bit of planning should be involved. Things like how you're going to make money, who's going to run the thing, and the most important, who the heck is going to buy from me anyways? You don't have to have it all figured out before you start, and I hope a lot of others will tell you the same thing. Because I know a lot of people in this room have ideas, dreams, or visions of something they might want to create, but maybe some of the excuses or barriers why you haven't started yet. Some of you may hopefully even share an imperfect plan like myself. But what I want to create in you is some action to go do even before you feel like you've got it all together. Maybe you have an idea and the funds, but you're not really sure how to put that into action. That's okay. If you start moving and searching, you will learn. You and your best friend have an amazing new idea for an app or a piece of software, but have no idea how you're going to sell it to people. A big part of learning to be a good salesman definitely comes with being a really bad one first. But you've got to start. If you've got reasonably organized chaos written on a dozen post-it notes but don't know how to get the funding, that's okay. Start moving and you'll figure it out. Now, I'm not the guy who will tell you how to write a perfect business plan. I won't tell you how to make passive income from your cell phone while sipping margaritas on the beach. And I surely won't tell you that I have it all figured out. But I will tell you that an imperfect plan will take you where you want to go if you let it. Thank you.
Help me get some chairs up here. Trey Sharp is going to join us. Trey, here he comes. Trey is the CEO of Sharp Communication and also Tango Tango. Sharp is going to interview Matt now, and he's going to tell us a little bit more about this imperfect plan that he had.
So we want to make those people more accessible and more known. And then those folks have also very generously offered to volunteer mentorship to New Leaf regulars, younger folks who are trying to figure out how to become successful. And it's a program we're really excited about. We'll tell you more about as we get all the details worked out. Well, Matt, you crushed it. That was awesome. Great job. You were telling me beforehand that you were nervous, but you absolutely crushed that. Studies show that the average person is more afraid of public speaking than they are of death itself. What advice can you give folks to overcome that nervousness? We all have to give presentations or talk in front of people sometimes. And I'm totally ad-libbing this question on you. We didn't talk about it beforehand, so I know I'm putting you on the spot, but I think you did a great job, so tell us how you did it.
I actually just imagined everybody in their underwear. No, that's not true at all. Truthfully, this is one of those things I've read over and over, and I actually did it vocally out loud several times and still tripped over my words pretty good, so I appreciate the confidence there. But no, it's an intimidating group here. We got a lot of awesome people in this room, and just a lot of people in general, a lot of eyes staring through my soul. So it was really just focusing on smiling. Reggie Jackson right there is one of my good friends. He does a lot of talking. I actually been talking with him over the last couple of days on how not to stay nervous. And he came up and just whispered in my ear right before. He's like, "Go kill it." So that helped a lot.
Very cool. Well, I think the burning question on the mind of all your Facebook friends here that I had meant to ask you for a long time and just haven't got to. Where did the name Fist Pump come from, and why is that in your Facebook name?
Oh man, I think that started back in 2009, 2010 when Jersey Shore was big. Anybody remember that show? Yeah, so it was honestly just a joke. It was one of those things where it was big, I watched it all the time, made fun of it, and I just decided to put it in my middle name on Facebook because that was a thing. And then all of a sudden people started showing up at bars or other places and calling me Fist Pump. And I had a nickname to myself, and then people I don't even know would be like, "Hey, are you Fist Pump?" And so I just kind of left it for a long time because, well, there's a couple hundred people that know me by that.
Cool, I'm going to call you Fist Pump now. You mentioned in your talk about how you founded Absolute Nutrition, a little bit of that story. Let's rewind a little, take it all the way back. Tell us a little bit how you grew up, where you went to school, and take us up to that point that you founded Absolute Nutrition.
So I'm actually from here locally. Really grew up in Decatur, Alabama. Ended up graduating from Austin High School there and then going to run on scholarship briefly at UAH here in Huntsville and pursued a degree in computer engineering. We got a lot of computer engineers in the room. Raise your hand. Yes? Oh, just a few of you. Well, I won't dish you too bad. I decided that if I did that for the rest of my life, I would jump out of a window. No offense to you, but I just couldn't do it. I couldn't sit in an office. So about my sophomore year in college, I decided that I was going to look for something else and just started Googling random things and came up with a program called Industrial Design. Found out Auburn was the only college in the state actually that offered that. And so figured out my plans and then tried to transfer to Auburn and complete my schooling there. Graduated from Auburn in 2008, which everybody knows was a great time for a job. All kinds of opportunity available. So actually I had a Dale internship lined up for that summer. Won the internship that last semester, and right before I got ready to graduate, learned that they did not offer that to graduating students. And so there was a logistical error there. So what I've been planning to do is go to Austin all summer, and I was going to win Dell over. They were going to hire me at the end. And that did not work out. So I was just kind of dropped back in my seat and moved back home for a little while. And just started applying for internships and jobs all over the place. And shortly thereafter, for a couple months doing random things, a good friend of mine was opening another restaurant and asked me to come manage it. And I had zero experience managing restaurants or really anything of that kind of level of occupation. And I guess he had confidence in me. So at first I said no, and I was just still looking for opportunities. And then I said, you know what the heck? And so I went and helped him open the restaurant from the ground up. Kind of like a real life PhD in how to run a business. You didn't really get instructions, you just had to go and do. So you write the server manual, you learn how to hire people, and you just kind of make things happen. And shortly thereafter, working literally 90-hour weeks for someone else, and at the time it wasn't really worth it pay-wise for me. I left there and then decided I wanted to do something else, and I actually talked to him about doing the supplement thing. And that was when I kind of discussed with a gym locally that I wanted to do a shop inside their place. They told me no, and I said, I'll do it anyways.
So we heard that stubbornness you mentioned play in a couple times in that. You were going to convince Dell, which was unsuccessful, but then continued to be stubborn, and that led to creating Absolute Nutrition. So awesome. So we know you probably haven't wanted to plug yourself or anything or your big businesses in this, but I think a lot of folks out here might not know what Absolute Nutrition is or what Apparel Lab is. So can you walk us through real briefly what those businesses are and what you do in those?
So Absolute Nutrition is a sports nutrition retail company. We sell vitamins, supplements, smoothies, and kind of cater to all levels of recovery or the performance athlete or just your general health. Apparel Lab is a more recent startup business that prints clothing, but not just print clothing in the traditional manner of screen printing, but it's actually a digital print from a direct garment printer. So it's a little softer print, water-based inks, and there's a lot more opportunity for all of the colors and all of the things rather than just your single 1, 2, 3 color type screen printing operation.
Oh, and I do want to mention, I meant to mention on the front end, we will have a little audience Q&A at the end of this, so certainly if you have anything that pops up in your mind, hold on to that, and be sure to ask that at the end. We definitely want your questions. So you kind of told us the founding story of Absolute Nutrition already. What about Apparel Lab? I mean, you're one of these guys, apparently like me, that just can't stop getting into businesses and signing up for more stuff on your plate. How did that come to be?
I just saw my mom laugh out of the corner of her eye. Apparel Lab was kind of an accident, to be honest. It was one of those things, about 4 years ago, I actually almost bought one of these printers just to do marketing for Absolute, which that would have been a really, really bad idea at the time. I had way too much going on. I didn't know what I was doing, and it would have been one more thing on my plate that just would have not tipped the plate over, to be honest. But also over time, technology has increased dramatically, and these printers have become really awesome. So I did my due diligence years ago about this brand and this company, and fortunately, I guess last summer, I started looking around again and just got the itch to go buy a printer again. And found a really good deal, had a little money laying around, and was like, well, I'm just going to pull the trigger on this, And at the time, I'd actually been introduced to Amanda from Discount Divas, and Brandon was like, dude, Matt can print your shirts. He's got this thing coming. And so I was like, all right, well, I've got a client. Like, I can do this for Absolute. Maybe this thing will work. And as soon as I got the thing, it was just like full speed ahead. Everybody was like, hey, can you print my shirts? Hey, can you do shirts for this? Can you do shirts for this? And it was like, holy cow, this can't be a little side thing. Like, this has got to be a business. And so shortly thereafter, went ahead and incorporated the business and brought Apparel Lab to its infancy, and then started building it up and buying more equipment and bringing in employees, and now it's a thing.
Awesome. Why do you think you became interested in entrepreneurship? You mentioned earlier your curiosity. You take household appliances apart for fun to see how they work, things like that. Do you think curiosity was part of it, or what? To come to Simon Sinek's TED Talk earlier. What was your why for getting into all this? Do you think?
Well, I think it comes down to two things. The first of which is I'm not sure I could really ever work for somebody successfully. I think it would be a butting of heads constantly, and that pretty much happened my entire earlier career. And I had a lot of different jobs, and I did well at those jobs, so I don't want to seem like I'm just a jerk who couldn't work for people. But I definitely at places like Best Buy, I was constantly bucking upper management to get things done or do something different, and they just didn't like it. Like, they wanted me to stay in my lane and do my own thing, and that's just not how I operate. So that's part of it. I think the other part of it just comes down to the very most simplest of whys is I do like to help people. And helping people comes in a lot of different capacities, but so helping people get fit, helping people find better supplements, all of those kind of things were my interest. And so any way that I can help people, and that has been a part of a business, has been great for me. Part of one of the things I've done with Apparel Lab was, I've ordered a lot of different shirts over the years, and every single time you try to predict how many smalls I need, how many XLs, how many this and that, and you always end up buying a ton of shirts, you don't know what you have, and then you have 20 smalls left in the corner, and there's 20 people who want larges over here. And part of the benefit of Apparel Lab is we can do this on demand, so you don't really have to be stuck with so many on hand. Start with an initial batch, and we can, take care of 5 or 10 more that you need on demand, or one more for an employee if that's the case. And that's just a great opportunity. So it's really kind of been my way to try to help some of these other business owners not sink a lot of cash into things like that, because it's a really frustrating thing when you're trying to do it.
So you run 2 businesses. You've got a ton of friendships. You're obviously in great shape, as we can tell from looking at you. You're a beast, you know. You know, a lot of us are struggling to just figure out one of those things, right? And you're kind of doing all of them at once. So how do you manage your schedule? How do you manage your time? What advice can you give to folks here? You know, we all feel like there's not enough time in the day. We have all these things we want to do, and we have varying degrees of success in doing those. What kind of advice can you give us from your life about time management and things like that?
Really simple. Don't sleep. In all seriousness, I'm not kidding. No, but balance in schedule and time has always been something that I've really struggled with. Always put too much on my plate. Still do the same thing. And it's definitely a stretch now between 2 businesses, trying to still stay in shape and work out, you know, have a life outside of those things. It's really one of those things where you have to start, unfortunately, planning a little bit. And so I do kind of plan my days a little bit differently, where I definitely have time blocks between the 2, and even certain days where I'll just do things like meetings or whatnot, so that I can kind of block off that time and not just have it overlap, because you can really easily just put out fires all day long. And if you let it stay that way, you'll never get anything done. And with 2 businesses and everything else, it's just going to become a cluster very quickly. So you have to be careful about how you manage that time. I would say the most successful tip that I've found that's worked for me is really preparing the night before for the next day. I was introduced to this phenomenal plugin for Gmail called Mixmax, and you can send emails later. And so I will literally sit there for an hour or 2 at night when nobody's bugging me and schedule all the emails that can be the first thing in somebody's inbox the next morning. And that is more or less proactively starting my day, where they're answering my questions first thing in the morning, and I'm already ahead of it by a couple hours, so I can be working on something else in the morning, and I'm starting my day in the right manner.
Awesome. So we should all go sign up for Mixmax. That's Matt's secret sauce. So, you know, you were a successful runner in college, on the track team, UAH. Obviously, great shape now, you know, you're an athlete. What did you learn in athletics earlier in your life that carried over to business? Are there common principles between those 2?
I would say the most common principle is learning to hurt. Yeah, I learned to hurt a lot. When you're a cross-country runner, it hurts the whole time. There's never really that point. You know, people think running's relaxing, oh, it clears your mind. No, it hurts the whole time when you run that fast. You know, and I think that's one of the other things too. You know, going to industrial design at Auburn, they do what's called summer off one summer, and it's literally just a super intense curriculum. You're in the studio 80 plus hours a week. You are not sleeping. You are just working on projects, and I think that was, you know, further effect to learning a good work ethic. I feel like I was taught a good work ethic through my former jobs and from my parents, but they just beat it into you, and it's one of those things like you just learn to take it and to go, and you do what's necessary to be done. You know, and I think that definitely trickles over to business, because sometimes you don't want to do it. In fact, a lot of times you don't want to do it, but you have to do it anyway because somebody's got to, and it falls in your lap, right? So I think learning that you've got to do the things that you don't want to do, or you've just got to hurt and grin and bear it sometimes, that's one of the most important things, you know. Later on, yeah, there's some easier times where you can chill out, maybe take a day off, you know. One day I'll get there. But I think for the most part, just learning that sometimes you just have to do hard work, and that's what it is.
That's great advice. So you mentioned something in your talk that I've never quite heard put this way before, but it kind of clicked with me. You said just do it. You can plan the hell out of it. But sometimes while doing all that planning, you can lose the passion that sparked the idea in the first place. You can lose that momentum. And, you know, I think there's a lot of truth to that. You can sometimes spend weeks, even months planning And sometimes those optimizations aren't worth the trade-offs of losing that excitement and that momentum, and then you just kind of toss the idea aside or just don't do anything. Can you kind of expand on that statement, or what led you to make that statement? Has there been experience in your life, or just tell us a little more about that thought process for you?
You've got a pretty big family. You ever been to Disney World?
Yeah.
How much money did it take for Disney World?
A lot.
Did you still want to go?
Well.
I mean, it's really one of those things where, there's some things that need to be carefully planned, right? Raising money for a new startup, for example. Like, you've got to plan how you're going to go to these meetings with these investors and really talk about what you're doing. And there's other times where you just need to get something done. And I think a lot of times you get passionate about it. Like, there was literally a time in the last couple of weeks where I drove past a sheriff's car and I thought, that's weird, I didn't think they were cream colored. Oh wow, it's just really dirty. I was like, hey, it'd be cool if we did an event where we just washed service members' cars. And so we're planning that for the end of this month. And I just literally called the manager and said, hey, we're going to do this thing. Hey, I'm gonna put together a flyer. What day do you want to do it? How much time do you want to do it for? And I can sit there and I can plan that, how we're going to do it a couple of months from now, and this and that, and where we're going to place the cones for the line and all this. But some of that is just, you can, leave the details in the mix where you know that these things need to be done when you're there, but get the idea out there and throw some momentum forward. Because if you sit there and you just continue to nickel and dime yourself with these planning and details, it becomes not fun really quickly. And like I said, I think there's a time and place where you have to do both, and you have to know. But when you're excited about something, you just have to jump in and do it. Because that momentum and that energy will keep you going. And it may not even be a good idea, that's the thing. Maybe it's something you're super excited about, and you just run into a brick wall and it just fails. And that's okay. But if you spent 3 months planning it and it failed, you'd really be upset. So I think I'm really big on just running full speed ahead. And, there's a saying, fail fast. And that's kind of part of it sometimes.
Okay, just a couple more questions here. I'm going to open it up to the audience. For those folks who are here in the audience, I think there's a lot of folks here that are interested in entrepreneurship. They're trying to figure out, do I want to start my own thing? Do I want to get outside the government contracting world or something like that? They want to go further than just this talk. What kind of books would you recommend? What books have influenced your life, or maybe before you even started your first business? What do you wish you had read? I know you're an avid reader. What do you think are great books on entrepreneurship or success?
I would say the number one for anybody in this room to read is definitely Thank You Economy by Gary Vaynerchuk. It really puts customer service in first and foremost perspective. And I think that it's just an awesome book, and it's the way you need to feel about how you treat your customers, whether you're in a business-to-business space or business-to-consumer. Customers first, and that level of customer service and just understanding that is super important. Another one I really liked, but also gave me anxiety at the same time, was Onward from Howard Schultz from Starbucks. And I think what gave me anxiety at the time was I was going through some similar troubles and listening to what Starbucks was going through, and as he was reiterating these similar troubles, I'm just starting to get nervous and thinking about what I need to do next, rather than fast forwarding and seeing how they got past it. But honestly, it was really good to hear, a company at the level of Starbucks, with 15,000 locations, multiple countries, that in 2007 they almost lost it all, and that they had to close stores. They had to let what they call partners go, which were their employees that they hated to let go. It was a big emotional thing for them. But that they continued to move through these things, place partners where they could in other stores, but they had to let some people out of the company, period. And they navigated through these waters and figured out how they could keep going. And I think it just really speaks to the failures you're going to experience in business, because you're going to have them,